I was never like Pants is the Sonic guy. He's not a comic guy though. He's never been in the comics, but he likes Sonic. But I haven't played Sonic that often. The video games, they're all right. I love platformers, but they're a little too quick for me. I like ones where you can take more time and explore. Like Kid Chameleon is my favorite video game ever. Okay, let's see. Okay. I think the coolest old humor comics I found are called gags. They're oversized and have a hole. Oh, wow. A hole going through the corner of the whole issue, and the illustrations play off the hole in various ways. Is that okay? I think I know what you're talking about. I don't have any of those. I have a humor magazine collection, which is like thousands and thousands of humor magazines. Well, not thousands, but over 1,000 humor magazines anyway, and all obscure titles. I don't have that many Mads. I only have about 2 piles of Mads, but I have all these obscure ones, because I really like those. I think I've heard of Gags. Was that from the 1940s? Did it have like girly covers, like, sexy girls on the cover? Something like that? Is it from the 40s or am I thinking of something else? Pants is doing all right. Shiv tonight, he's doing all right. I never read the Max. I never read Spawn. I've never been into superheroes. I know Max is a funny comic. Sam Keith, I know. Yeah, Beat Chef, I almost did that. I almost did ship the tapes to somebody. I almost shipped them to Bill Luxton Jr., the son of Bill Luxton, who played Willie and Floyd. But he never followed up on it, so I never sent them to him. And I felt kind of nervous about sending them through the mail because I've had tapes get damaged that way. You'd have to be very careful shipping them because he has the hardware. If he had pressed it, said, I want you to send me the tapes, I had an envelope and everything, I would have done it, but he didn't follow up on it. Well, thank you, Danzel, or Phil. Wow, isn't that so weird now? Slow Beef is playing with his daughter. Isn't that amazing? Like they have kids now and they have families and they're, channels with their families. What is my top five artists? Oat? What does the oat mean? My top 5 artists, Oat. Did you just mean my top 5 artists? Is that what you mean? Of all time. Okay. That's difficult. That's really difficult for music. See, I like a lot of music. Well, I could tell you some of my favorites. My favorite singers. Like, I like older music, as you probably know if you've watched my channel and listened to my songs. Gene Pitney is one of my favorite singers ever. Like almost everything he recorded is great, and he recorded a lot. And I can't say that for a lot of singers. I'm not one of those fanatics of a singer where I just love everything no matter what it is, and I say it's the greatest thing ever. I know a lot of fans are like that. I've never been that sort of fan for anybody. But Gene Pitney, I love his songs. His early stuff is more simple, but it's wonderful. It's catchy. And then his later 60s stuff is a bit more complex in the song structures and everything, but they're great songs, just amazing songs. And he had such a unique voice too. So he's definitely in my top 5. I can say that. I love opera. Well, okay, I don't love entire operas, but I love opera singers and I love arias, like certain arias from opera. And I actually like it when opera singers sing pop songs. I just like the power in their voice, like the sounds of their voices. So Mario Del Monaco is one of my favorite opera singers. So I'd put him in the top 5. Jan Pierce is probably my favorite, though, for nostalgic reasons, also because he's an amazing singer. And I follow the Ed Sullivan channel on YouTube. I love the Ed Sullivan Show, and so they post things like You know, people like that, I just love it amazingly. I just love it so much. But other pop singers, Bobby Darin has always been one of my favorite singers. I just think he's really cool. A lot of people like Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra's all right. He's okay, but I like Bobby Darin better. I don't know. I think he's hipper and he's more versatile in my opinion because he can do swing music, he can do rock and roll, he can do folk music and pop music, country music. The guy could do all these genres, you know, and pull it off. And I really like him a lot. Neil Sedaka. Now people laugh sometimes when I say that. Neil Sedaka is a great. I think he's a great singer. He's a great songwriter. He's written like hundreds of songs. I can relate with some of his songs. You know, some of his later, more introspective songs, and I like his early catchy songs, of course, too. So he's one of my favorite, Neil Sedaka. I love the Platters. If you've ever heard of the Platters, I have two vocal group or bands or what do you want to call them? Vocal groups that are my favorite of all time. The Platters is one, and the Bachelors is the other. The Platters did the songs like "Only You," "The Great Pretender," but so many of their songs are great, even the lesser known ones. "The Magic Touch," "Remember When," "The Sound and the Fury." There's so many. "Enchanted," "The Mystery of You." They had so many great songs. And the Bachelors are an Irish band of three guys that used to do old songs from the 1920s, but they do them in their own style in the 60s and remake them. And I absolutely love the way they sing. Just absolutely love that. So I guess I am doing a pretty good job of telling you. Okay. I got to catch up with the chat. Okay. You mean a lot to us, Slime. You've kept us happy with your videos all these years, and it's fun to stay alive. It is fun to stay alive, Beat Chef. And whenever you feel down, remember that. Everybody remember that. It is fun to stay alive. Because in the end, if you're not alive, it's not fun at all. I mean, that's the end, right? And as bad as things get, they usually get better. They usually get better, you know? I'd like to say they always get better. You know, a lot of times they do. So just think about that, you know? You get in those situations, say, well, I feel awful. Like I'm at the bottom of the barrel right now, but just remember to stay alive because you'll be glad you did. When things get good again and you find things you enjoy and can appreciate out of life, and you'll be happy that you're alive, that you're still alive, you know, because being alive is ultimately the greatest thing you can be in. As long as you're not in pain all the time, like physical pain, being alive is just amazing, you know, just the fact that you're alive. Okay. Alita Battle Angel. Now, I've never read that. I've never been to anime, but I know that was very popular. And a friend of mine played Alita in a YouTube video. And without going into too much detail, I'll just say that. So that's how I know of it. That's how I know of it. But yeah, I haven't really been into anime or cyberpunk. Yeah, so that Gags, it is that 40s magazine. Yeah, that looks like a fascinating magazine. It really does. Where did you find those, Shiv Tonight? Where did you find those Gags magazines? Team Tash. Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Better late than never. Oh, Phil was the guy on you. Oh, right. That was his name, Phil. Yeah, I remember now. Okay, that's not your name. Yeah, the guy in the zone. I remember him now. Oh, I know there's some good devices out there. I haven't been asked enough or whatever you want to say to get one. It's possible, Team Tash, that, you know, I'll make more videos someday. It's possible. I don't know though. I mean, I could do this once in a while. This is pretty good. I was gonna do a Valentine's Day stream for all the people out there that don't have anybody to spend Valentine's Day with. You know, I was because I thought, hey, we all get together and just spend time together. You know, I probably should have. You know, I kind of chickened out. I didn't do it, but it's only a few days after. You know, I thought that might make people feel better too. You know, do that. That's good, Solar Cat, that you're able to enjoy all that music. Verdi, Verdi's all right. Verdi's all right. Not my favorite classical composer, but well, I don't even know. I don't know what that is. Sorry about that. Burl Ives is good. Yeah, Burl Ives is good. I like Burl Ives. He is sort of a folk type singer. He did pop songs as well, and he had a very warm voice. You know, he's a very nice man in real life. Burl Ives. I know a lot of people like Candy Rock Mountain, and Blue Tailed Fly and all those, and they're good. You know, he's always good. That guy. I like the what is it? I'm the guy from Wolverton Mountain or something like that. Maybe it's just Wolverton Mountain. He did, and I like a funny way of laughing. I really like that. That was a big hit for Burl Ives. It's just my funny way of laughing. If you've heard that, and the other one, a little bitty tear. Oh, that's a great song. Little bitty tear let me down. Spoiled my act as a clown. I had it all set up. Yeah. Oh, that was a great song. Burt Bacharach. It took me a while to get into Burt Bacharach songs. They're a little different. Like they definitely have a structure to them that is all his own. But after, okay, Gene Pitney, who I mentioned earlier, is one of my absolute favorite singers. He recorded a lot of Burt Bacharach songs, and I absolutely love them. Absolutely love them. So it wasn't really Bacharach. It was some of the singers that I didn't like as much. I didn't like their voices as much that did his songs. But Gene Pitney did a whole album of Burt Bacharach songs, which you can buy maybe on I have it on CD, but it's a great album. So yeah, I like Bacharach songs now. Um, Coal Farm, thank you. It's good to see you as well. And how much did you pay for that, if you don't mind me asking? That seems like it would be expensive. I used to buy on eBay all the time when I had a good paying job, but now that I don't. I don't buy on, and also from Canada, it is just expensive as heck to for the shipping. So I don't buy online anymore. What I do is honestly what I just do is I go to the sales every year. They have like 2 or 3 sales at my local comic store here, and I am fortunate enough to live very close to the greatest comic book store in Canada. Like it's just the greatest one, you know. And I'm not exaggerating. This store is amazing. They have something for everybody, and they always have new stock all the time, and it's packed with people. This store, and they have these 3 for $1 sales like 2 or 3 times a year, where they're just trying to get rid of stock, you know. And I find so much great stuff in there. You know, so many undiscovered treasures. Astrid Gilberto, is that the one? He did the girl from Ipanema. Is that correct? Because I'm not really. That's the only thing I've heard by him. And I'm not really a big fan of that song. If that's who you're talking about. Oh, used to be Radio AK. I remember that name. I remember that name. Hey, Biff Vandersnatch. I remember you. Remember your name for sure. Sammy Davis Jr. He was great. I like him. This guy's in love in Germany in the 60s. So cool. Yeah, Sammy Davis Jr. was a great entertainer. Really great. Um, I loved like some songs like he did Hey There, which I'm a big fan of that song. And The Birth of the Blues was one of his big numbers, and I love that. the way he sang that. He was another really nice guy, an amazing entertainer. I've Gotta Be Me. He did that. He made that song popular, I've Gotta Be Me, and that's a great song too. That's a great pick-me-up song. I don't know how long it takes to boil potatoes. I can't help you with that. Wow. That's pretty good. You want to see my oldest humor magazines? I'll show them to you. These are my oldest humor magazines. Like I said, I've got thousands or over 1,000. I keep saying that, but I do have a lot. And my oldest one is Ballyhoo. Ballyhoo was a popular humor magazine which ran from 1931 to 1939, I believe. It was like the Mad magazine of the 30s before Mad was around, you know. And this issue is number, I think it's number 3. Yeah, I'd have to open it up, but I think it's number 3. And this is from 1931. And this is original. This is not a reprint. So, yeah, he looks like the Monopoly guy. Now, 1931 was like 31, 32, 33 was the height of the Great Depression. So people weren't doing very well at the time. So it's a lot of Depression era humor. And this magazine was 15 cents, which in the Depression was probably quite a bit of money, 15 cents. But it just shows you how popular it was that it was able to last for 10 years or 9 years. And here's another one from 1931. That was the September issue. This is the October issue. You can see that Art Deco kind of style. And that's vintage, like from the 30s. And this is the other issue I've got from the 30s. So these are pretty cool. I also have a bunch of the revival Ballyhoos from the 50s as well, which I could get out, but I guess I won't get it out right now. Okay. Ooh. I have a very squeaky closet, as you can hear. Nancy, I never really got into Nancy, but I haven't really read a lot of it. I know exactly what it is, Nancy and Sluggo. But yeah, the colors are pretty good, Beat Chef. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about, Solar Cat. It sounded like that Shiv tonight, didn't it? Sounded like a car peeling out. So I'll just show you some of the comics I'm reading currently, so you can, just something to show you. So I've got like a lot of Beavis and Butthead comics. This is a trade paperback, which collects issues 5 to 8. But I also have originals as well of Beavis and Butthead. This was published by Marvel, and it's pretty neat. The artwork's amazing. It's by Rick Parker, and he really captured Beavis and Butthead, like the style. Like it's just really, really good stuff. You know what? This is true. You're gonna think this is weird when I tell you this, but Beavis and Butthead is the only cartoon I like. I'm not a fan of cartoons in general. I'm not a fan of The Simpsons. I'm not a fan of whatever, South Park that much, or Family Guy or King of the Hill, or I don't get into cartoons, but I love Beavis and Butthead. I just love it. I just think it's hilarious because I think Beavis and Butthead it works on more than one level. They're like a comedy team, like a classic comedy team, like a crude, Laurel and Hardy or something like that, you know, and they're really funny. And also it's a commentary on culture, on our culture of today, you know, like the stuff they say about stuff, like they're two idiots, but the stuff they comment on and they make fun of is really funny. Like the way they do it, like Mike Judge is amazing. The guy that, you know, created Beavis and Butthead, the guy that writes Beavis and Butthead, he's amazing. I've never seen King of the Hill. Maybe I'd like it, you know, because he did that too. But yeah, he's a genius, that guy. So you met Rick Parker. You know what's funny is Mike Lackey, the guy that wrote the early Beavis and Butthead comics, he was here in my hometown recently. But Rick Parker, though, is an incredible, like, I really like his artwork. His lettering too is incredible. He did another comic book that I have called, like, it's called Kid Death and Fluffy, which is this really weird comic book about a kid and his something, I forget, but it's really like off the wall, like really non-PC humor, and it's really funny stuff. It's like hilarious. And that was a Rick Parker comic too. He actually wrote that one. And did the artwork, and it's an obscure 90s comic, but it's really good. Definitely ahead of his time, I agree. Let's see. Yeah. And Rick Parker is also a friend of mine. I'm friends with Mort Todd, who Rick and Morty, they make jokes about that, right? They're best friends, Rick Parker and Mort Todd. Mort Todd is a guy that's done everything in the comics business. He's been an artist, a writer, an editor. He was the editor of Crack Magazine in the late 90s, and he revitalized the magazine and brought, you know, amazing talent to the magazine. He was at Marvel Comics in the 90s. He's done so many different things, you know, and he's kind of like a wild guy and quite a personality. He could tell you so many stories, that guy. And so he's friends with Rick Parker. Yeah, he worked for Cracked. Yeah. And I've chatted with Mort Todd like this. Like I've actually chatted with him. You know, like we've voice chatted and we've talked like in text tons of times. Like I've known him for quite a while. And he's a great guy. He's a really great guy. Rick Parker, I've only talked to like once or twice on Facebook. I don't really know him, but I'm really in awe of his. And I told him how much I like his work, you know. I've never heard that. He was supposed to be some kids that came into his treehouse and bullied him. Wow. You know, it's another thing about Mike Judge is not only does he write and you know, create Beavis and Butthead and draw it and everything, but the guy does all the voices. It's amazing hearing like all these different voices come out of the same guy, you know, because they're all so different. And seeing him do those voices in interviews just is so bizarre. It's bizarre hearing Beavis and Butthead's voice come, Mr. Van Driesen's voice, you know, Coach Buzzcut, Principal McVicker, you know, all these different characters. And it's amazing how he can do those voices and they all sound so different. It's amazing voice acting from that guy. It's crazy. See, the thing about King of the Hill is I never watched it because it seemed kind of dull to me. Like it seemed like it was just about Tom Anderson. I know doesn't have, like Hank Hill doesn't have the same name as Tom Anderson, but he's got the same voice and he seems a lot like him. And I like Tom Anderson in Beavis and Butthead, but I don't know if I'd want to watch a whole show centered around him and his family, you know? But it's got to be good. I mean, if it's Mike Judge, it's got to be good, right? And Daria, he had nothing to do with. Like, he created the character. At least I think he created Daria. I know Daria is from Beavis and Butthead, of course. I don't know if someone gave that character to him or not, but I think he created Daria. but he kind of gave the character to somebody else, and they did the Daria TV show. And Daria, he had nothing to do with that show at all. And I've heard a lot of mixed opinions about it. Some people really like it, and other people didn't like it at all. They couldn't get into it. But yeah, he really didn't have anything to do with that besides the character, like creating the character Daria. Which is weird, right? That he didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, Rick Parker did a lot of lettering. He his artwork's amazing. Like he does all the artwork in the Beavis and Butthead comics. You know what? I'm going to show you that other comic I was telling you about because you got to see this. You got to see this guy. You got to see his artwork. Okay, so this is a very obscure comic by Rick Parker, but it is so good. So it's called Kid Death and Fluffy. And this is a set of all the issues. So let me open it up. Yeah, Daria is a very dry humor. Okay, so now you can see it better. This is one of the issues. So this is his artwork too. No, it's not his artwork. Sorry. This is Bill Moss. The cover's by Bill Moss. But this is the comic book. And let's see here. He didn't write it. I'm wrong. He didn't write this comic. But he well, I'm having trouble seeing it. I think he did the pencils though. Yeah, he did the pencils with Amanda Connor apparently. Okay, so let's take a look here. Now this comic's pretty cool. It's this off the wall thing about this kid. It's not a kid's comic by any means. Like it's just crazy stuff, right? So he didn't do this artwork, I don't think. But see, he gets into these adventures. I think this girl here is his sister, his older sister. And you see, like, he's doing things here that, you know, are not PC. But it's a very funny comic book. And you could get some looks at it here. It's just hard to describe it. I'd describe it in more detail if I could, but it's really hard to describe. Oh, wow. Look at this here. So he did do that. This is definitely Rick Parker artwork here. And he's even put Beavis and Butthead into it. There's an unofficial appearance by Beavis and Butthead there. So it looks like two people. It's like Rick Parker and Amanda Connor did the artwork. But yeah, it's a crazy comic. It's really cool. I like these just off the wall, you know, humorous comics like that. So there's something. Let's see, what else should I show you here? I got my 3D glasses here. They're very cheap 3D glasses. You can see they're made out of paper, and they fall apart very easily. And they just did. So I have these for reading 3D comics, which I have a few 3D comics. I don't have many. I don't really like 3D comics just because they're a pain to read, to look at. But you see, if I had better 3D glasses, but still, like, everything's kind of dark, like reading 3D comics, and it's kind of like, it's not fun for the eyes after a while. Okay, let's read some more of this here. Yeah, I said, like, Rick Parker was an amazing letterer. Sad sacks do I have? I don't have that many sad sacks, Biff Vandersnatch. I haven't seen Office Space. My grandfather has seen it like 3 times, and he's told me it's really good. Idiocracy. I know I've seen Jaws 3D. I saw that when I was a teenager. It was pretty bad. I only watched it because Leah Thompson was in it. You know, Back to the Future, Leah Thompson. I really liked Leah Thompson. For a while there, I like rented every single movie I could get with Leah Thompson. Howard the Duck, you know, which I liked actually. Oh, just you? Oh no, you're lagging? Oh, it's all right now? Is everything okay? I didn't know. Like, I have no idea if we're lagging or anything, but let's see. What was I going to show you? There's something I was going to show you all. Does anybody remember what I was going to show you? Because I forget. Good. I'm glad it's all right now. I don't know what I was going to show you all. Something to do with humor magazines, I think. But here's a comic. It's a comic called Camp Chaos, or actually called Chaos Magazine, which nobody's ever heard of. And I just love finding things like this. So it's a bunch of like text articles about things, which I like. I like a lot of people buy comics and they don't like it if there's too much text, but I actually do like it because I just love to read. And I like getting involved in a story or something. But this thing it's like text articles and comics. It's weird. I've only got one issue, but I'd like to get others as well. Goosebumps. I've never read a Goosebumps book, but I think they're cool. I just like the idea of them. I mean, I know about them. I've seen the covers of them and everything. I have friends that like them a lot. Or I've never read any. But yeah, the cover work, exactly. Yeah. I like looking at the covers of them, you know? And it's one of those things where even though I've never read them, I'm just glad that they exist. The guy that wrote all those, R.L. Stine, he was the editor of a humor magazine in the 1970s and 80s called Bananas Magazine. And I have every issue of Bananas Magazine, every single issue. There's about 79 issues or so. And he was the editor, and he wrote a lot of the articles in it. And back then, he was a humor guy. So he was known as Jovial Bob Stine. Not R.L. Stine, but Jovial Bob Stine. And he just did funny stuff. He didn't do scary stuff at all. And it's funny because he did that for 10 years, that magazine. It was published by Scholastic, who also published Goosebumps, right? But after that magazine went out of business, he didn't have a job. So he's kind of like here and there. And then he just came with this idea for these books, Goosebumps books. And wow, that took off, and he became a millionaire after that. The Napster thing, man. Remember Napster and LimeWire? Man, when I first heard about those, I was so excited because oh, you download music free on the internet. This is incredible, you know, you don't have to buy stuff. But it was so like pirating. It was under the, underground kind of thing. But man, that was a big deal for a while. Napster. Wow. I haven't thought about that in a long time. I remember ICQ chat and MSN chat. Remember ICQ would go, uh-oh. You remember that? Scary stories to tell in the dark. Oh, Michael Wataharo. Oh, by the way, I forgot to say hi to you. Um, I don't know what you just said, but it's nice to see you. How you been doing lately? Are you doing all right? Are things going okay with you? Kazza and Frostwire. I remember Kazza. Soulseek. Don't remember that one. Yeah. There were some fun times back then. You could just chat with random strangers. Now, here's another weird comic I could show you that I'm, like I'm showing you stuff I'm currently reading, like I said. This is weird, right? This is this is a superhero called Cancer Man. Okay, now it's kind of like in bad taste, right? I mean, obviously cancer is not something you make fun of, but it's still like an entertaining comic. You don't take it seriously. It's not supposed to be. It's a humor comic, right? But he's a superhero. Well, I'll explain to you what happens in this. So this guy, this nerdy type guy here, right? He reads a lot of superhero comics, like Spider-Man and Batman, Superman, right? And he wants to be like these guys. He wants to be a superhero. And in a lot of these comics, they're exposed to radioactive something or other, right? You know what I'm trying to say. Radiation. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. And they get superpowers from that. So he gets the idea that if he can only get exposed to radiation, that I'm glad you're enjoying this, Jack Ducey, by the way, because I love showing comic books. He gets to, if he exposes himself to radiation, he'll get superpowers. So I forget how he does it. Like he sneaks into some place and he goes in the lab where they get this radioactivity, and he just spends the night like giving himself radioactive, whatever. So, he goes out and he goes around and he notices that he doesn't seem to have super strength. He can't leap over tall buildings. He can't do anything like that. And he's like, oh, great. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. But then he notices that he's got X-ray vision, right? And he can see through girls' clothes, right? So he starts looking at all the girls on campus. And unfortunately, this is not funny though. This is very sad because all the girls with large chests develop breast cancer. And it's because he's been looking at them with his radioactive X-ray vision, right? And he's like, oh, now where'd they go? I don't see them around anymore, right? He didn't realize he was doing that to them, and then he feels like terrible about it. And it's pretty weird. It's a weird comic, right? Yeah, it's messed up. So, but he goes out and he kind of like, he starts growing all these lumps, right? He gets all these tumors and lumps, these cancerous things, and he gets really big. And then this kid sees him and he says, whoa, it's a superhero, because he puts a cape on and everything. He says, it's a superhero because he's big. He's got muscles. He doesn't realize the muscles are tumors, and lumps and everything. So he decides he's kind of going crazy, after all this. So he decides he's going to actually be a superhero. And he goes out and he starts killing people that have parking violations and stuff. So it's really bizarre. It's really strange. But then Chemotherapy Man and this other guy go after him, and they try to cure him of the cancer so that he'll stop going around these rampages and everything. And that's what the comic book's about, So Cancer Man. It only lasted for one issue, but if you could track it down, it's an interesting comic. That's the only issue. So, Cancer Man was a part of this comic, this humor magazine anthology comic book. It's in comic book size. It's called Humor on the Cutting Edge. They only last for 4 issues. The last issue, it was magazine size, but Cancer Man was a serial in this book, and they also had other ones like Planet Patrol, which is a parody of sci-fi stuff. They had Ramblin' Dog, about a dog that gets in trouble with the law, and he's in love with a cat, and it's about his adventures, and text articles and parodies of things. And it's a really interesting little humor thing, humor comic. It was written or edited by Some of it was written by Bruce David. He was the editor. Bruce David, is it? Yes, Bruce David. And he actually sent me, because I couldn't find them anywhere, he actually sent me the issues I was missing. They didn't charge me hardly anything either. And sadly, he's passed away now. But this is a weird little comic book as well. Comic book / humor magazine. This is the sci-fi parody in it, Planet Patrol, about people that rescue this girl that's they find in a cryogenic chamber suspended in space and everything. They thaw her out and they rescue her. And they have like an alien that pilots their ship. You can see this little alien dude right here. He pilots the ship and they have adventures. And that's pretty cool. Then they have like an interview with Judy Tenuta, who I don't know who that is, but they have an interview with her, so you can learn about her. They have, like single panel cartoons. They have the things where they have like the old movie stills and they put like jokes and gags on them. Again, this is for adults as well. It's not for kids, but it's a pretty cool little obscure humor comic. Yeah, she did die recently. I don't know who she is, but I did hear that she died recently. I'll have to read this interview again. Okay, so what else do we have here? Oh, Michael, I'm really sorry to hear that. That is horrible that you lost your dad a few days ago. That is absolutely terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. My condolences go out to you. That's got to be one of the worst things. The internet was the Old West in those days, for sure. Yeah, I used to love going to I used to go to the public library downtown. I used to hang out there all the time on weekends. Thanks. Maybe I will stream more often. I didn't think it would be this well received. I didn't think people would be that interested. So maybe I'll do that, like show you some comics that I'm reading sometimes and whatnot. Yeah, see, I'm not into superhero comics, so Shiv, tonight I agree with you. Like, I don't like serious superhero comics, but I like funny ones, because the whole concept is absurd, as you said, right? So if they take themselves too seriously, I'm just not interested. Toxic Avenger, I've never seen the movies. I've played the awful video game on the NES. Terrible video game. Superhero deconstruction stuff. Yeah, I got a lot of comics like that. I like stuff that's a bit risky, Solar Cat. I do like that when they take chances. Back in the 90s, they did that all the time. Like they can't do that much anymore, and it's kind of sad, because everything's so PC. But in the 90s, man, there was a lot of creative, risky stuff coming out. And again, you don't take it seriously. You don't get offended at it. It's just it's a comic, right? Judy Tenuta played the accordion. Yeah, it's funny because you're talking about the Toxic Avenger. I know there was a lady that played his girlfriend in that movie who was also a kind of an eccentric personality, and she used to play the accordion and sing. She was quite good. Thank you, Shiv, tonight. That's really nice of you to say that. See, I don't like, as I said earlier in the stream, I don't like phony people. So I don't like being phony with people. I don't like putting on an act or anything. So, I'm just being myself. I'm just who I am. And if you guys like that, then that makes me happy. Now, this comic, this is also one that only lasts for one issue. It's called Bimbos in Time. So what this is actually, now this is going to be shocking, but this is, thank you, Team Tash. I really appreciate that. This is an adaptation of a movie called Bimbos in Time, which is a very, very low budget movie by Todd Sheets, who is from Missouri, I believe, and made all these low budget horror movies and weirdo movies back in the 90s and 2000s. And a lot of them are really bad. Like he just had his friends and local actors working in them, and they're just terrible movies, a lot of them. But you know, I like terrible movies. Sometimes they're just fun to watch, like these low budget things. And this movie was part of his Bimbos trilogy. Yes, he made 3 movies starring the Bimbos, as he called them. Um, and I've seen one of them, Bimbos in Prehistoric City or something like that. But this one I've never seen, and I can't find it on the internet. I've looked because it sounds really weird, and I like weird stuff. It's about these women that go there. There's this bad guy, right? This really silly bad guy that opens a time portal, and he sends them back in time or in different time periods. So they meet Sherlock Holmes, they meet Elvis Presley, you know, and this is an adaptation. This is the same thing as the movie in comic book form. So it's a fun comic, you know, because it's so goofy. I can just imagine what the movie would be like. Cerebus the Aardvark. Yes, I have never read it. Yes, I've never read it. But Cerebus was, oh, it's funny that you mentioned that, Zoot World, because Cerebus was such a big deal in the 1980s. Such a big deal. And Dave Sim, who wrote, you know, Cerebus, who did Cerebus, he was an inspiration to so many people. So many people got into independent comics because of him, and you know, churned out their own comics, and people looked at him as a great artist, and you know, and they loved the comic. And the thing was, if you don't know what Cerebus the Aardvark was, it's just this crazy epic comic book, which is I've never read again. And the reason I haven't read it, I think, is mostly because there's so many issues of it. It's just too overwhelming in a way, to get involved with it at this point. I know they're collected and everything, but I think there's 300 issues, and he planned it as 300 issues from the start. And having an endeavor like that, like you think would be doomed to failure, right? But it was so successful that it wasn't. Everybody loved it, or a lot of people loved it. It was huge, huge news. But what happened is he voiced some viewpoints that some people didn't agree with. And you know how that goes now in today's society. Well, even back then, you know, he was very outspoken about certain things. And I'm not saying he's right or wrong about the stuff he talked about. I'm not going to get into that. But I do believe everybody should have a right to their own opinion and should be able to voice their own viewpoints without people just canceling them, as they like to say now, or blacklisting them or whatever. I think freedom of speech is a very important thing. A lot of countries don't have that. And you know, we have had it in theory, but it's been in danger, you know, recently. But anyway, that's a whole big subject. Voltaire was a guy, I believe is a philosopher, right? Voltaire, or author, who said, I may not agree with your opinions, but I defend to the death your right to say them. He said something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And I think that's important, you know, in society, in a free society, is to let people view their opinions. Because if you don't agree with them, you can just say, okay, let's screw that. I'm not into that. You know, I'm not into opinions. But when you don't let somebody voice their opinions, you can't have a fair and honest dialogue in society. You can't have a rational discussion about things. You can't even solve problems in society, you know? And also, people will end up lying to each other. They'll be dishonest with each other because they'll just say what people want to hear. And I see that all the time on the internet. People just playing a role, just acting like somebody they're not. And I can't stand phoniness. And so that's how I feel on that subject. And I see that I'm glad you guys agree with me. I mean, you don't have to agree with me, just like I said, but it's nice to have the support. I definitely appreciate that. Now, I was going to say about Cerebus, going on a different topic. is that Dave Sim used to date a lady whose name, I don't know her real name. I don't remember her real name, but the pen name that she went under was Zola Estrella. And I'm sure I'm not saying that right. And I got to show you something. Hold on here. It may be, I mean, I don't know this because, again, I don't know the situation, but it could have been out of his relationship with this woman that he developed some of his opinions. So I don't know if he had the greatest relationship or not. And again, I'm not going to take sides because I don't know, right? But this woman that he dated, she did her own comic book, okay? And it's called Zola Estrella and the Bard. Okay? So she wrote this comic book, Dave Sim's ex-girlfriend. This is from the late 80s. Now, here's the thing. She called herself Zola Estrella. Okay? So she says that, see, right here, written and drawn by Zola Estrella and Etcherling or whatever. That was the guy that she was her partner in doing these comic books, right? And the crazy thing about this is that it blurs the line between reality and fiction, because she's calling herself Zola Estrella in real life, right? Dave Sim's ex-girlfriend. And then she's got this comic about this goddess. She's an actual goddess, all right? She's not like mortal, okay? And she kicks ass, and she's got this real attitude about everything. And I don't know if it's supposed to be her, because I mean, she called the character the same name as the name that she goes by. And I feel like the guy who's the bard, right, in Zola Estrella and the Bard, is the guy that wrote the comic with her. Like, it's supposed to be, they're basing it on themselves. It's the feeling I get when I read this comic book. And it is really, really funny. It's not supposed to be funny, but this comic is hilarious because I don't know how to say it, but it's just I like the comic. I like the comic book, and I don't know her personally, right? She may be a very nice person, but it's yeah, I don't know how to talk about it, but it's unintentionally funny in the best way. But it's also entertaining because it's low budget. It's these two people that did this comic book together. And Dave Sim was still dating her at the time that she did this comic book. In fact, Cerebus makes an appearance in one of these issues. I don't know. I don't know what to say. But I'm fascinated. I'm just fascinated with the story behind this. He did? I didn't know that. Shiv tonight. I haven't heard that part about Dave Sim. I know he said some things about women that people don't agree with. I know that. But I didn't hear that last part, though. And he still has a YouTube channel. There's not a whole lot of people subscribing to it, but he still has a YouTube channel. This is actually a picture of Zola Estrella. That's her. So that's Dave Sim's ex-girlfriend right there. And I think she... so this is a photo cover. I like comics with photo covers, too, because they look so cheesy, right? And I think they're at a Renaissance fair when they did the photo shoot for this cover. And I think it's just a really neat cover. Yeah, she's attractive. She was a very attractive lady. Even more so, like... and the artwork gets better as it goes on. This is the 3rd issue. And that's not bad. I think it's decent artwork. It's the guy that did the artwork, and she did the writing. And it actually the story gets better too as it goes on. So I mean, I'm laughing at it, but at the same time, I'm enjoying it as well. I've definitely read comics that are complete garbage, where they're just they're not fun on any level. But this comic is fun. This is not garbage, so I'm not saying that. Let me show you some more. Oh, that guy. Yeah, that guy. The Ren and Stimpy guy, yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that guy. Ren and Stimpy is something, again, I've never gotten into it. It just didn't seem very funny to me, or entertaining. Very interesting. Good opinions. Very interesting opinions that people are sharing in here. Here's another photo cover of the 4th issue. There's Zola Estrella again on the cover. Oh, here's a picture from... so this is from one of the Comic Cons. There she is, like, just as herself. So you can see she's very pretty. This is at Comic Con 1987. There she is with like a wizard guy at the Renaissance Fair. I love low budget stuff like this. You just gotta love this kind of like do-it-yourself stuff. So it lasted for 5 issues. This is the last issue. So yeah, I recommend this comic. It's a fun little comic. Do-it-yourself fantasy comic. And then they had another issue later called Goddess, The Untold Tales of Zola Estrella. And Dave Sim did this cover. So there's a Dave Sim cover for you. Yeah, Comic Cons have changed a lot over the years. They really have. Now here's another comic that Zola Estrella did later on in the early 90s. This is called Stray Cats. And actually this comic, you'd be surprised. This comic really moved me. I know, and I mean that unironically. Like, this is actually a really good story that she wrote. Or did she write it? I know it's with the guy again, with the same guy that she did the Zola Estrella comics with. I'm not sure if she wrote this one or not. Check. No, she didn't. She published it or co-published it, and she's the editor. So Ted Echtcherling is the guy that did the artwork for Zola Estrella and for this Stray Cats comic. But this comic is about a cat. I know they look like humans, which is weird, but it's a cat that has lived a pampered life, with her owner, sorry, and she escapes. She gets out into the real world and sees what things are like, and it's really like sad because it's a rough time out there when she goes out in the real world and has to deal with the other cats, and and then her owner's like looking forward to like what happened to her and everything, and it's like, I don't know, I found it emotional. Like, I found it really moving, this comic. I really liked it. Okay, Shiv, tonight, it was great to see you. It was great to see you. Thanks for coming. So, yeah, now, that's a good back cover. Like, it's a pretty cool back cover. But it only lasted 1 issue, so the story's incomplete. But yeah, I just thought it was a good comic. What's the rarest, most valuable comic I own? That's a good question. That's a really good question. Well, rarest and most valuable are two different things. I can tell you that. Because I have a lot of comics and magazines that are very rare, but I'm not sure how valuable they are because, people don't know about them. So there's not really a demand for them, right? So I got some humor magazines from the 50s that extremely hard to find copies of. And if you find the right buyer, I imagine they'd be worth a lot of money. Then I've got some things where the price has just gone up, because they become in demand when they weren't in demand like years ago when I bought them. Like, for example, Blip. There's a comic called Blip, which is published by Marvel Comics. And it was a video game comic magazine about, current video games and tips on video games and strategies and things like that. But it's a comic book size. In the first issue, there was a comic book strip. I mean, there was a comic strip. It's about 4 or 5 pages, an actual comic strip that featured Mario and Donkey Kong. And it's the first appearance by Mario in comic books and Donkey Kong in comic books. It's 1983. So that comic the price has been going up and up. When I bought it, I think I got it for $1 or something because nobody knew about it. But they found out about it in the last few years, and it's become valuable now. So that's something I have that's valuable. And I've got other things like that too. Like I have one that has an early appearance of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is now valuable because people discovered that. They didn't know about the appearance before. It's called Extremely Silly Comics. I have something called Bubba the Redneck Werewolf, which is supposed to be valuable, but I don't know if it actually is. Like people are trying to sell it for hundreds of dollars on the internet. Like I have a bunch of issues of that because there aren't many copies of it, but I don't know if anybody actually buys them for that price. Then I have the first appearance of Barack Obama in a comic book, which it's a comic book called Licensable Bear, a very low budget comic book. And copies of that online are a lot of money as well. So those are some that are valuable. So I told you about like rare humor magazines and things. Like I could show you, if you want, I could show you some old humor magazines I have, if you're interested. Some rare ones, if you'd like to see them. Would anybody like to see that, or you think Zoot World, that would be all right? Show you a bit? Okay. So these are some of my rarest humor magazines. I'll show you. Okay. Just getting out a bunch here. So I kind of need to go to the washroom first, though. So I'm not going to stop the stream, but if you all just want to hang around, I'll show you some rare humor magazines when I get back. I'll only be gone like a couple of minutes. Thank you, Solar Cat. I appreciate that. I'm glad you came. If you can come back before I end the stream, you'll be welcome back, of course, to participate, as you always would be. Okay, so I'll be back in a couple of minutes. And then after I show you these, I'm probably going to head out for today. But I got a bunch of things I can show you, though. So what I'm going to be showing you now is, with some exceptions, probably the most valuable of the humor magazines that I have. Like, I got other ones like a lot of cracked. I have almost all the cracked magazines, and I mean the early ones are valuable, and some other like sick magazines and cracked and stuff like that. But I'm going to show you the more obscure stuff. Okay, for the most part. So I was showing Ballyhoo magazines earlier, which is the one from the 1930s. In case you weren't here earlier, there's a quick look there. Then Ballyhoo came back in the 50s. They had a revival of it. So I'll just show you some covers here. This was about the 3D movie craze that was going on in the early 50s. That's when 3D for the first time became a thing. It was a fad in the early 50s. It didn't last very long. But see, this guy went to the movie theater, and he's got the 3D glasses on. He just took the girl right out of the movie. Because like 3D, you can, like, it's like you're going right into the movie. That guy actually did there. This one's got a Mort Walker cover. I think it's Mort, or maybe it's not. No, I don't think it is. It's a Hoff cover. Thank you, Team Tash. No, that's true, Beat Chef. Seems to come and go in these little spurts, you know. This is the outer space issue. It's got a lot of funny outer space stories. It also has like a thing about Marilyn Monroe in space. This was Marilyn Monroe was really popular. It was 1954. And this guy, he got his head chopped off. And that was the last issue of the revival. And you see, it looks like a Life magazine cover of the time. It's a parody of Life magazine. So there's some Ballyhoos. Now, this is the first magazine issue of Mad, but it's not the original. It's a reprint. The first issue is worth a lot of money, right? I can't really afford that, but but this is a special collector's edition reprint, and it's from New Zealand, which is really interesting. Mad became a magazine in 1955. It was a comic book before it was a magazine, 1952. Here's a coverless copy of the second issue of Mad, second magazine-sized issue. I really like the early Mads. This is while Harvey Kurtzman was still the editor before he left. And if you know anything about that, he left and had a falling out with William M. Gaines, the publisher. I just love the look of these old magazines. Now, this is an original. This is the third issue of the magazine-sized Mad. And this is original. I'd say it's in pretty good shape. I saw a copy of this downtown, for like $200 or something. So this could be worth some bucks. Because like I said, it looks like it's in pretty good shape. 1955. It's still shiny too, which is really cool. Harvey Kurtzman used to have these weird ideas for covers. And they're so cool. I like these weird covers that the early Mads have. Like this, the spring issue. This is the last one that Harvey Kurtzman was the editor of. So I've got the early magazine issues. Yeah, EC published Mad magazine and Mad comic book, and did all the way. William M. Gaines was the publisher. He's the EC's publisher, and eventually they sold out to DC, Warner Brothers, later on. But yeah, EC was all, William M. Gaines was all mad. Old Playboys, that's pretty cool. And this is the first one that he was not the editor of, Harvey Kurtzman. And this is the first issue that had Don Martin art in it. If you're familiar with Mad, you'll know who Don Martin is, or was. Al Jaffe, by the way, the guy that did the fold-ins in Mad magazine, he is still alive, and he's 102 years old now, which is pretty cool. This magazine I'm going to show you was the first Mad competitor after Mad became a magazine. It's called From Here to Insanity. And it also says Crazy Man Crazy, whoa, on the cover. From 1955. Now this magazine, these are very rare. These magazines are very rare. This is taped up, as you can see. I taped it up because it was falling apart. But wow, these things are crazy. So this started off as a comic book, like Mad did. Comic book called E-H. That was the title. Weird title. They changed the title to From Here to Insanity with the 11th comic book issue. And then with the 12th issue, it became a magazine. Because Mad became a magazine, so they became a magazine. And this is the first issue of the magazine. And it's pretty cool. So it's got like comic strip things. And it's got like old photographs with funny, captions and stuff. Turn of the century. Movie parodies. Mad type stuff. And then they changed the title after it was From Here to Insanity as a magazine. Changed the title again and called it Crazy Man Crazy, which you saw on the cover of that other issue. So I guess they were thinking of changing it at that time. 1956. If you want to get these, you're going to have a hell of a time doing it, because I had to track these down on eBay years ago, and they don't show up very often. Then they went to comic book size, and they called it From Here to Insanity again, even though it says Crazy Man Crazy on the cover. So they couldn't decide what they wanted to call it, I guess. This is a Bill Ward cover, if you ever heard of him. And this is so weird because it has pages of color illustrations like that. It's mostly black and white, but sometimes you'll find a color page in it. It's such a cool little thing, It's so weird. It's got Basil Wolverton art and, Bill Ward and, stuff like that. And then these were published by Charlton. I don't know if you ever heard of Charlton. This issue, they changed the title again. So listen to this, right? They started off as then they changed the title to From Here to Insanity. Then they changed the title to Crazy Man Crazy. Then they changed it back to From Here to Insanity. And then they changed it to This Magazine is Crazy. And this is still comic book size. This issue was so hard to find because it's got an Elvis cover, 1957. They're making fun of Elvis in it and a bunch of other stuff, super rare. So glad to have it. This is one of my favorite humor magazines, by the way. It's a lot of fun to read. And then they went to magazine size. You know Bill Ward? Yeah, Bill Ward's one of my favorites. He worked for Crack for a long, long time. Yeah, Elvis, they called him Elvis the Pelvis. He was called that by adults and by the press. He hated that nickname, by the way. Elvis. But they called him that because he just, he shook his pelvis around and everything. So his critics would call him Elvis the Pelvis, This is this issue is almost entirely a parody of the New Yorker, which is funny though. It is really, really funny. I love this is a great issue. 1958 we're up to now for this magazine. Then the next issue, I'm glad they teach you about Bill Warden Art School. I didn't know they did that. That's awesome. This cover here is about Sputnik. Sputnik was the satellite that the Russians sent up in 1958 or 57, and it caused a huge uproar because the Americans were like, we're behind in the space race. Russia is ahead of us, and everybody was like, oh no, Russia can't beat us in the space race, by sending out the first Sputnik, the first satellite into space. And so there are a lot of magazines make fun of that at the time. So in this cover here, they're in Russia and they're showing you that it's actually a pawn shop signpost. And he just took this down and they just catapulted it into the air. Like you can see behind the price tag up there. That's not the actual price I paid, by the way. That's, and so it's not really a satellite. It's just, they just did it in the air and they fool everybody. That's the joke. That's the joke, right? And they're giving him a medal, the pawn shop owner. See, that's the joke there. But anyway, this is a neat magazine. Really cool. I paid a lot for some of these. And then this issue's got Jane Mansfield and the Dodgers. This is when the Dodgers moved to Hollywood, Los Angeles Dodgers. And people were in uproar about that because they're like, oh, they're going to be like Hollywood celebrities now. So that's what that cover is a reference to. They are like time capsules, and you can learn about history from reading these magazines. Then we have Statue of Liberty cover, which is pretty cool. And then the last issue, which has a really weird cover. And it also has a parody of Mad in it, which is ballsy, of them to do that. The main guy that wrote the later issues of this magazine is crazy. His name Gary Belkin, and he actually went to work for Mad after this magazine went defunct. So there's something interesting. This guy here, this is a parody of those old dentist ads where the kid be like, look, Mom, no cavities because I use Crust toothpaste. But he doesn't have any teeth. So that's the joke. This magazine is called Snafu. This is worth a lot of money. This is a Stan Lee magazine. The same Stan Lee who went on to become the Marvel Comics guy, as you all know, I'm sure. This is before the superheroes at Marvel. This is before Marvel. This is when there was Timely and Atlas, and he published this magazine, Stan Lee. Well, actually, he wasn't the publisher. Martin Goodman was the publisher, but Stan Lee wrote everything in this magazine. The entire thing. Stan Lee wrote it. And he really did, too. He didn't just put his name on it. He actually wrote this magazine. Stan Lee had a great sense of humor. He loved humor magazines and humor comics, which is why Marvel took a chance with humor stuff like Crazy Magazine later on and, Howard the Duck and, a lot of different things. But this was his first attempt at humor, Stan Lee, and he had a soft spot for this his entire life. This is 1955. And one of the very first humor magazines ever, really, after Mad, came out as a magazine. And it's extremely rare. This first issue is extremely rare. It lasted for 3 issues. There's the back cover. And the artists are incredible because they're Stan Lee artists. Like Bill Everett is in here, Russ Heath. Just amazing, talented guys. Joe Manley. The artworks, I'd open it up, but I'm not going to open it up right now. But the artworks, if you can look at samples online, Amazing stuff. Amazing artwork. This is the second issue. Snafu. It's the back cover. Yeah, I'm never into superheroes either. But I like Stan Lee, though. I appreciate everything he did. The third issue and the last issue. This is an Al Jaffe cover. So this would have been right about just before Al Jaffe first worked at Mad. He used to work for Marvel or Timely or Atlas or whatever, like in the late 40s, I think, doing like girl comics. I forget what the names of them are, like Patsy Walker or something like that. So yeah, this is the last issue, and then in the back, a cover shows you he's watching this girl on the TV, and his wife hit him with the rolling pin. And this one, the Native American guy shot him with the arrow, and the other side, his wife hit him with the rolling pin. So that's pretty funny, you know. Who has dead bodies in his basement? Me? I don't have dead bodies in my basement. I might have to get rid of this guy. We'll see. We'll give him a chance. Cockeyed. Cockeyed is another really obscure humor magazine from the mid-50s. And it's another really hard one to find. It's extremely difficult to find. It's not that great, but it has moments in it. Yeah, that's right, Zoot World, yeah. It has moments in it where it transcends itself, right? And Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, I think it's this issue. I've got 2 issues. This is the other issue I've got. One of these issues, they did a piece for it. So Simon and Kirby. So, I mean, 2 of the most famous guys in comics did a piece that hardly anybody's ever seen in this magazine, because like copies of this are extremely rare. So that's really cool to me that I've got that. I can do this. Watch this. Okay. All right. Now, the next one, is Who Goofed? And that's a really early Photoshop cover. You see? 1956. These are all from the 50s. This magazine lasted for 2 issues. So these didn't last very long. And there's the second issue. Which is pretty cool. Zardafron. That's funny. Lunatical. That's one I like to say the name of a lot. Lunatical was created by, I can't remember the guy's name, but he became famous for doing like expose magazines and tabloid magazines and sleazy stuff later on. But he started off by doing humor magazine. It's called Lunatical, and he claimed that this sold 1 million copies. I don't know if that's true. I don't think copies are that easy to find, but I'll tell you, it sold 1 million copies, and it was dead by the second issue. It only lasted 2 issues, so I don't know about that, you know. But this has a parody. I don't know if I think it's the second issue, though. It has a parody of William M. Gaines, which is absolutely hilarious, and about the problems that he had with the Un-American House Activities Commission, where they are trying to blacklist him, like saying his comics were bad influences on kids and everything. Got a whole parody of that whole scandal in the issue, and it's really something to see. I have been told that this second issue, and I think that's the one that has it, is one of the rarest humor magazines in existence. I've been told that, like, there are very few copies of this that exist in the world. I don't know how many copies, but I will tell you that there's a History of Humor magazine's book that was published a few years back that I actually contributed to. I proofread it, and my name's in the book. My real name is actually in the indicia of the book, but it's called Behaving Madly, and it's a history of humor magazines from the 50s, samples of the magazines and a text history of them. The author tried to get copies of every humor magazine so that he could, talk about them in the book. And this magazine, this second issue of Lunatico, was the only one he couldn't find a copy of. So he looked all over the world for it, and he couldn't find one. So I actually had to give him a scan of this so he could use it in the book, because he had covers of all the magazines in the book as well. You can buy the book. I think it's gone in like a second, third printing. You can buy it on Amazon or whatever if you want. I'm not telling you have to or anything, but it's a hardcover book. But it's a pretty cool book where you can get samples of these magazines and you can read about them. So that's cool that I've got that. It's not in the best condition, but hey, it's apparently one of the only copies there is out there. And then this magazine is called Trump. And this is the magazine that Harvey Kurtzman did when he left Mad. So Hugh Hefner, the Playboy guy, right, published Playboy, he made Harvey Kurtzman an offer. He said, if you leave Mad, right? Thank you, what's that? I appreciate that. He said, and I hope you have a great dinner too. He said, if you leave Mad, I'm going to give you a bigger budget. You're going to have a magazine that's going to be slick pages. It's going to have color. You could do anything you want. And it's all your baby, basically. So he gave him a big budget. And they always say this, Harvey Kurtzman exceeded it. He exceeded the budget. And this was the first issue of that magazine, Trump magazine. And sad story, it only lasted for 2 issues. So it was it didn't work out. But these are highly sought after by collectors. And again, Harvey Kurtzman did these weird covers. Like, I mean, look at that. It's an all black cover. It's like, I don't know if that was the best idea, but I think it's just cool. I think it's pretty cool. And he brought all the Mad guys with him that were with him at Mad, like Bill Elder and Al Jaffe and, Wally Wood, Jack Davis. He brought them all. And this is a really slick, beautiful magazine. Just gorgeous magazine. And it's sad that it only lasted for 2 issues. So then after Harvey Kurtzman failed with that, he didn't have hardly any money left. So he got together with his artist friends and they all pooled their resources. And they did something called Humbug, which was very cheaply produced. Very cheap paper, but great. Fantastic artwork. Jack Davis, Al Jaffe, Bill Elder, the same guys. Amazing artwork. All Harvey Kurtzman wrote everything pretty much. And it's a cool, sweet little comic, like humor magazine comic. And it lasted for 11 issues. And that's a Jack Davis back cover. So that's pretty cool. By the way, I probably won't leave the stream up. I'll probably delete it after I do it. Because I don't know. I just do that. I just delete streams. So don't think anything bad happened. And if you see this disappear or anything, it's just what I do. But I really love talking to everybody. So these streams are all ephemeral. They come and go, right? But it's just good to touch base, and do this sort of thing. Bladen. Oh, Bladen. You're from Bladen's. Oh, man. Retro Bladen. Yeah, I know. I keep thinking about possibly going back there someday, but then I just never do it. I hope he's doing well. I know he's still streaming, but I appreciate that. Oh, man. I figured you guys wouldn't want to see me after all this time. Like, that guy, he hasn't been here so long. That's so nice of you to say that, though. I don't usually hang out in Twitch chat rooms. I don't do that. I just don't enjoy it very much usually. So I don't. Because you know why? Because I'm reading all the time. I'm always reading all these comic books and things I got, you know? I've got so much, and I just love reading, you know? But anyway, I'm going to show you some more before I go. Oh, man, Biff, that's so nice to hear. I'm sorry I haven't been there. Tell them I send my regards, and I apologize for not being there, and I feel badly. I hope Bladen's not mad or anything, you know? But it's like I said, I just read all the time, and I don't go to Twitch chats. I don't hang out in them. I watch people play video games, but I do it like while I'm eating, and I don't do it while it's live. I just do it on YouTube, like VODs, you know, that sort of thing. But that's so nice of you, Biff. So the next one's called Frenzy. A lot of people don't realize there's so many humor magazines, you know. But it's funny because their mascot looks like Ernie Kovacs, the comedian from the 1950s, which is just a weird idea. Like, you're creating a mascot for a magazine, you wouldn't base him on somebody that's real. That doesn't seem like a good idea, you know? You want to have something that's all your own. Pretty strange. That's good to hear, Biff. It's good to hear. Here's another issue of Frenzy. This lasted for 6 issues. This is a pretty neat Thanksgiving cover. Yeah, good way to get sued, exactly. They literally used Ernie Kovacs as their mascot. I wonder if he even knew about this magazine. He was a very popular comedian a television comedian in the 50s. So it'd be like if you took like Will Ferrell or Jim Carrey or something and just made him the mascot of your magazine without asking him. it's just crazy, right? Thank you, Sophie. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm still going. I haven't finished yet, but Thimk. Yep. This is not bad, actually. I used to think it was a pretty crappy magazine, but then I read it like over, and it's not bad. It's actually not bad. Thimk magazine, 1958. They have different covers of what it could look like if it was like a women's magazine or a photography magazine or a confessions magazine, that sort of thing. And then they have it as if it was a Japanese magazine on the back. Or Chinese, I'm not sure. Chinese, sorry. So that's pretty cool. And then there's another one called Panic. Panic was also a comic book published by EC, which was a sister publication to Mad back in the 50s. And then another company in the late 50s decided to use the same name and call their magazine Panic. So that's pretty cool. So the guy's saying, don't worry about a recession. He says, me worry? I was a bum during prosperity. So I guess he had nothing to lose. Anniversary issue, it's a joke because it's the first issue. Interestingly enough, I got this one in the mail. I bought this on eBay, and I remember that I got it in the mail the same day as I did an interview over the phone with Les Lie. The guy that you see on the poster back there played Floyd and William Floyd and played all the adult characters in You Can't Do That on Television. I'm a huge fan of his, and I was fortunate enough to talk to him for an hour on the phone and do an interview with him, which I have on a CD. He was a very nice guy, and he sadly passed away now. He'd be 98 years old now if he was alive. But yeah, I got this in the mail the same day as I did that interview. I'll always remember that. Which would I consider my favorite? Well, I really like Sick Magazine a lot, which I haven't shown you. I have every issue of Sick Magazine up there. That is definitely one of my favorite magazines, Sick Magazine. It's one of the weirdest humor magazines. It lasts for 20 years, from 1960 to 1980, 134 issues. And I like it. I like it a lot. Joe Simon is the guy that created Sick Magazine. He published it and created it. He's the same guy, Simon Kirby, that did, Captain America, and the Fighting American and those things. And he had a great humor magazine, for 20 years. He did it for the first 10 years, and then he passed it off to other people. It wasn't as good in the last 10 years, but it's weird, and it was still cool, Yeah, I have every issue. And that, I got to tell you, not to brag, that is one of the hardest magazines to complete a run of. I was told by people that I might not be able to do it, but I did it. It cost a lot of money though over the years, but I have every issue. It's a rare magazine. You don't even though it's 134 issues, you rarely ever see it in used bookstores. You can see it online on eBay and stuff, but you don't see it in the wild. And I could show it to you, but it would take me a while. Maybe another stream I'll show it to you. That might be my favorite one. I've always liked Cracked because when I was a kid, Mad was my favorite originally. It was the first one I discovered. Then Cracked became my favorite. I love so many of them, but I guess Sick. National Lampoon is an adult humor magazine, which I love. It's very not PC at all. Very politically incorrect. They couldn't publish anything like it today. They offended everybody, everybody. Their humor went everywhere. And I mean, some stuff offends me even in it, but it's a humor magazine, right? So you have to realize that. And I don't like everything in it, but there was a lot of brilliant stuff in that magazine. A lot of brilliant stuff. And there's actually a documentary you can watch about it. It's on Netflix or Tubi or something like that about National Lampoon, where you can hear about the magazine. And it revolutionized humor in the 70s because they did stuff that nobody had ever done. And the guys that wrote it were Harvard guys. They were brilliant guys, crazy sense of humor. It's amazing humor magazine. And I have almost every issue of National Lampoon. There's about 250 issues or so, and I've got almost every issue. The only issues I don't have are a few of the last issues. The last issues are really bad, by the way. In the from 94 to 98, they published it sporadically, and they're bad, And I'm missing a few of those. I have some of them. I'm missing some of them. They're darn hard to find, the last issues. But I've got all the others. I've got all the great ones. Yes, I have never seen that movie, but I should definitely see that movie about Doug Kenny. Doug Kenny, if you don't know, was one of the founders of National Lampoon. He was one of their best writers. A genius, very sensitive fellow, who probably killed himself, but nobody knows because he fell off of a cliff and nobody knows if it was an accident or if he did it on purpose. But wow, he was quite a man. What a talent that guy was. What a talent he was. Yeah, that magazine that you're talking about with that cover is worth a lot of money now. It's been shooting up in price. And I've got it. Like I said, I've got all the issues. But that cover is famous, and it's been ripped off so many times since then. I could get it and show it to you, but I'm sure you've seen it. I've got all of them over. I got the first issue, I got everything. So it's pretty cool. So back to these though. Panic. So National Lampoon and Sick, Cracked were probably my favorite. Oh, and that other one I showed you earlier, This Magazine is Crazy. That crazy one, and Humbug. I think those are my favorite ones. I would say. Panic, number 2. I've got complete runs of a lot of these, of most humor magazines, actually, including these weird, obscure ones. 3rd issue of Panic. This would be an arresting cover. Imagine seeing that on a newsstand in 1958. Imagine that. That's ballsy. 1958, seeing that? I don't think a parent's going to let their kid buy that, I mean, That's crazy. They put a cover like that on there. These covers are weird too. Like, look how weird these are. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it, Team Tash. Because I am showing like a history here of humor magazines. Of the old ones right now. I'm talking about a lot of stuff. So that's all the issues of Panic. The worst humor magazine? Yeah. Yeah, there's some. I've got all the ones from the 70s down here, like obscure ones from the 70s. And there's a few in the 70s that are really bad. There's one called Trash, which is just, I'm going to say it's trash, but it's too easy to say that. But it's pretty bad. It's just really lame. There's one called Parody. Yeah, it's okay. But Trash is one of the worst ones. I mean, I like stuff, like, even if it's bad, I like stuff, so it's hard for me to say any of them are just really the worst, but Trash would be definitely one of the worst. And one called Wacko, which is done by the same guys that did Trash. That one really sucks too. That's from the 80s. Wacko lasted for 3 issues. Trash lasted for 4 issues. I have them all. But yeah, they're not that great. I'll just say that. Loco. Loco is that's a very busy cover for a humor magazine, 1958. It had some good people in it, like John Severin, Bill Elder. This cover of Loco #2 was used as the cover of Behaving Madly, that book I told you about, the hardcover book about the history of humor magazines, which I was consulted on. This is the cover. They used this as the cover of the book. The author used this. So if you look on Amazon, you'll see that. Exactly, Behaving Madly. Did you know about Behaving Madly before this stream, Team Tash? This one's got part of the cover cut off. It's a 3rd issue. And then there's Frantic. Now, this one's not that good either. This was not very good, to be honest. Lasts for 4 issues though. And here's the weird thing. The cover is like, I don't know, like, would this compel you to buy it? Like, it's just all red. Now they do have what looks like a naked woman down there, but if you open it up, you'll see like it's like a statue or something like that, right? But they're just, trying to get you to buy it. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Okay, so maybe, I don't know, but here's the thing, right? That's the 1st issue. Here's the 2nd issue. Again, it looks so much like the 1st issue. It's like all red. These covers, like, they didn't put much effort into these covers either. And then the 3rd issue is all yellow, as you can see. And the 4th issue, they finally put a bit more of a picture on it. And if you open them up, you'll see this. It's supposed to be like a view inside the magazine, So that's pretty cool. It's all right anyway. Then there's this. This is called Shook Up. And the market was getting saturated by humor magazines at this time. And they were just going out of business. See all these humor magazines. So this came like at the tail end. And of the, that fad for humor magazines. And it only lasted 1 issue. Oh, yeah, and then there was another one right after that. There was one called Nuts as well. It lasted for a couple of issues as well. So there's that. And then there was, this is actually different. This is a Jack Davis cover. Really nice Jack Davis cover. This was published by Joe Simon before he did Sick magazine, called Campus Howl. And what it is, it's collections of humor from college humor magazines of the time. So it's a real window into the time of, you know, the cultural mores and, you know, what college was like back then. It's a lot more innocent than it is today, as you can imagine. It's a really charming magazine, actually, even though the covers look kind of racy, I'll say, as you can see. This guy's like a hunter, but you see what he's hunted for here, right? Co-ed kind of thing here. That is a Joe Simon cover, by the way. I'm pretty sure Joe Simon did this cover. That one. And then another great Jack Davis cover. I have thought about it, Zardafron. I have thought about it. I've thought about having a channel where I just talk about my comics and magazines in more detail and just doing like one video for each title. There'd be like hundreds and hundreds of videos. I've thought about it. But I'm just always so busy reading that I just don't do it, you know? But I could talk about these for hours, you know? I love this cover, it's photo cover. They changed the title to Campus Humor, as you can see. That's a cute photo cover. Got a ponytail and the graduation cap. So college students would have bought these at the time. And this was promoting a movie called College Confidential. Yeah. Yeah, I would do. Yeah, that's where I would do it, on here. And this starred Steve Allen, this movie. That's Steve Allen there. Pretty cool. And then the last issue, there's another really charming cover. So 6 issues. And then he had just started to publish Sick magazine. So he was busy with that. Then we have something called Jackpot. This is more of a men's magazine when they used to have a lot of magazines which were, they are like men's magazines with you know, naked ladies and stuff, like pinup girls and things like that. But they have jokes and gags and humorous things in them. So this is like a humor magazine, but it's also like a girly magazine for men as well. So I won't show you inside of it, but it's got some funny stuff in it and a lot of like 50s pinup girls. Let's see. And then there was a magazine in the early 60s called Fooey. This is pretty bad too. I think Fooey, I have a theory, but nobody seems to know. But I have a theory that Fooey is a reprint of an earlier humor magazine from the 50s called Foo. Because it has a really old feel to it. Like even for its time, it seems antiquated. It's got some funny articles. It's got a whole lot of pictures of men in drag in it for some reason. And it does have some funny text pieces, now I remember. But it doesn't have like any women at all. It's just like the guys that wrote the magazine, they all just dressed up as women and played women in the magazine, which is weird, you know. But it's a strange magazine. It doesn't have like comics in it. It's like all text pieces and stuff. It's just weird. I don't know. And they have this joke called a half off sale, like clothes are half off. So the joke is the back half of them is not there, you know. So it's kind of funny. That guy's supposed to be the editor on the cover. It's got weird. Somebody spilled printer's ink on it when it was published. kind of a cool cover. A real low budget humor magazine. I guess it's pretty cool for what they could put together, you know, just on a shoestring like that. And then there was a comic book called Yak Yak, which was all by Jack Davis. The whole thing's by Jack Davis. And it's pretty cool. There's only 2 issues of Yak Yak. So it's got great Jack Davis art and published by Dell in the early 60s. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, you have to think about that. Yeah, the work that went into these magazines and these projects, you know, it is really astounding. This is called Ape. It's published by Dell as well. Lasts for 1 issue. It's got a lot of single panel cartoons, you know, and text pieces. Some wordless comic strips. Things like that. It's interesting. Now this next one. Okay, so the reason I bought this is because the listing for it at the place I bought it from said it was a satire magazine, a humor magazine. Do reader responses ever get published inside these magazines? I wonder what public opinion of each magazine would have been like at the time. Yes. When the magazines lasted long enough, they have letter columns. And I absolutely love letter columns because I love seeing what people said, you know, what their impressions of the magazines were. And a lot of times they criticize, you know, they'd say, oh, you're just, unfortunately, there were a lot of people who would just say, oh, you're just a ripoff of Mad, you know, get lost. You shouldn't be even published because Mad's the only magazine. It's like Mad fanatics would be like that. Other people with more of an open mind would say, okay, there's room for more than one humor magazine in the market, you know, and still some people would criticize, some people would love it and some people wouldn't, but it's fun to see what the readers said. A lot of the magazines didn't last long enough to have too much of a reader reaction, but some of them do. Some of them have fake letters, like National Lampoon. They have fake letters, which are funny as well. Yes, it is a Tiffany poster. Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. That is what it is, Dopey Poke. But this magazine, like I said, in the listing, it was supposed to be a humor magazine, a satire magazine, but it isn't, though. So I bought this and I was like, I don't even know what it is. It's called Boy Illustrated, right? I think it's aimed at little boys, but it's aimed at boys, right? But it's supposed to be like, it's not like, it's something they'd be more interested in at the time. Like it's like got monsters in it and adventure strips and stuff like that. And, you know, how to be a secret agent, how to build your own bomb, you know, it's got crazy stuff like that. Right. So it's funny in that respect. But it's not really a humor magazine. But the thing is that I looked online and it only lasts for 2 issues, right? Copies of this thing go for so much money online. It's apparently extremely rare. Extremely rare. So it's cool to have it just for that because it's such a rare magazine. And apparently it's in demand, but I don't know by who. I don't even know how people know about it. It's very weird. Yeah, so it's got like tips on it's got like profiles on baseball players of the time, Roger Maris. You know, it's got activities you could do. Sick jokes, you know, jokes that kids could tell their friends. And again, it's not like today though. Like listen to some of these jokes, right? Okay. Hey, Johnny, your dad just fell into the fireplace. Well, poke him up. It's real chilly in here. That's one of the jokes, okay? The school principal just hanged himself. Have they cut him down? Not yet. He isn't dead. Can you imagine that, publishing jokes like this in a kids magazine today? Yeah, can you imagine this? Pull your head in out of the car window, Dad. You're knocking all the telephone poles down. Hey, look, now I'm taller than she is. And then the person says, have you gotten elevator shoes? No, she just had her legs amputated. What the hell? These jokes. This is unbelievable, right? I can't, it's just unbelievable. I can't believe that this is, I don't even know, I'm speechless right now. I'm just speechless right now. You could buy a monkey, okay? Look at this. You could buy a monkey by sending in this coupon in the magazine, and they'll send you a monkey in the mail. You could actually send live animals through the mail back then, which is not a good idea. All right, I just want to say that that's not a good idea. It's just unbelievable. I know that a guy named Gary Brodsky was selling piranha fish in a comic book in the 80s, in the mid 80s, like actual piranha fish, and he got in a lot of trouble with the postal authorities. But man, this is what you say is like maybe that's why this magazine's in demand, because it's just so crazy. There's a stuff how to do judo, you know. It shows you actually how to do like judo moves here, you know, with pictures and stuff. So it's supposed to be all stuff that boys would be interested in, you know. Oh man, this is really crazy stuff. In the early 60s. I don't know, if you were a kid in the early 60s, what would you think of this magazine? I don't know. And then they have like adventure things, like, you know, comics, you know, like serious adventure comics and stuff like that in it as well. Branko, it's good to see you too. It's good to see you too. I liked you. You were a good guy. You're always a good guy, and always appreciated your support. So it's good to see you here. It's really good to see you here. But yeah, that's a crazy magazine. I don't know what else to say about that one. This one's called Rat Fink, and it's pretty sleazy. It was published by Jackie Cannon, who was a stand-up comic of the time. He was on Ed Sullivan a few times, and he performed in a place called the Rat Fink Room. So he created his own humor magazine called Rat Fink. It's got funny parts in it, but it is very like adult-oriented, men's sleazy kind of humor of the time, like the guys that would hang out in the sleazy nightclubs, smoking their cigars and everything, telling dirty jokes and stuff. It's kind of like that crowd that this magazine is aimed at. I get the feeling. It's pretty slick too. That guy must have had money at the time. He must have been popular for a while, because it's the pages are very slick in the magazine. Okay, thanks, Branko. I appreciate that very much. I really do. Then there's Rat Fink 2. There's only 2 issues. So you got Lyndon B. Johnson. He was the president with the mascot, drawn by George Woodbridge, who worked for Mad Magazine later on. And then we have something called Laugh Boy, which is... It looks like it'd be a parody of Playboy, but it isn't really. It is another one of those magazines that combines men's magazines of the time with nude pictures of ladies, pinup girls, with humor, you know, with a humor magazine. And apparently this goes for a lot of money online as well. There's only 2 issues of this. And these are in excellent condition. Excellent condition. There's the second issue. This issue, I believe you can download it at Internet Archive if you're interested in seeing what it looks like. The guy that wrote the magazine, I think, had written for Mad Magazine before this, before he did this magazine. And then in the 60s, in the mid-60s, and the protest movements were really big, someone decided to capitalize on that and created a magazine called Yell magazine. So it's the magazine that talks back. So it's supposed to be like if you're in a protest and everything, you're going to like this magazine because you can protest with this magazine. They give you things to protest about. But really, it's just an establishment humor magazine with corny jokes and stuff, you know, like everything else. But they tried to paint it in this kind of protest, you know, anti-establishment veneer, but it doesn't really ring true. I have a feeling that a lot of it was written by Paul Lycan, who wrote for a lot of these magazines at the time. But it's entertaining. It's an entertaining magazine. There's the second issue. And the third issue is notable or noteworthy because it features some of the first work by Robert Crumb in this issue. So, I mean, there's that, you know. I saw, like, there's a copy of this somebody's trying to sell for like $300 on eBay. And I don't think they're ever going to sell it for that much. But there's only 3 issues of that one. And then there's a magazine called Wild, 1968. Some of them have been. Some of them are on Internet Archive, Library Genesis, sites like that. Wild is a really cool magazine. It's one of my favorite ones. And it's in the late 60s. It's got sort of they're making fun of like hippies and everything, the anti-establishment thing, but it's funny. And it's comments on the society of the time, the things that were going on. See, there's like the bikers, the hippies, the surfers, you know, all those different things, the rock musicians, everything that was popular at that time, you know. Second issue. They said you can win $100. They had a contest where you could win $100. And that's the back cover too. So it's the front and back cover. Folds out like that, as you can see. Got a pinup of W.C. Fields in the centerfold. It's got a parody of Hugh Hefner in it, which is really, really good, actually. It's really fascinating. That's it right there. This one's not in plastic, so it's got a parody of the Playboy Club's like comments on that existed back then. Tattoos. Cool Hand Luke. You've seen the movie of Paul Newman. Cool Hand Luke. It's got a parody of that in it. Yeah, 10,000 cents. Then they had this comic called Superbird, which is about this mousy librarian. As you can see, she's right in the center there. And she turns into this hot chick. That's like her superpower. I think she fights like for feminism or something. I can't remember, but it's pretty cool. Then they have like how to smoke a banana. Because back in the late 60s, there was a rumor that hippies would smoke bananas, banana peels. So a lot of people thought that, you know, that was something you could do back then. Pat Paulson for president. Pat Paulson was a regular on the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour. He had a fake campaign for president in 1968, so they were supporting that. This is really cool because it's got a centerfold of one of my favorite singers, Tiny Tim. This is when Tiny Tim was at the height of his popularity. If you know who he is, he was one of the most fascinating personalities of all time. Fascinating individual, just fascinating. And there's in fact a parody of the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour in this issue, as you can see. So that lasts for 3 issues. Then there was a humor comic book called Groovy. 3 issues. It was published by Marvel. So it's in demand for that reason, because it's a Marvel comic. And it's pretty cool. It's mostly like one panel cartoons. And then there's a weird magazine called Zany. There's more than one magazine called Zany. So this is mostly like photo humor and weird articles, like weird fake articles. So this guy's saying, a funny thing happened to me on the way to a tonsil operation. So instead they gave him a sex change operation. That's a joke. Can a timid nurse past 25 find happiness as a hippie peace marcher? You know, very weird stuff. This was the hippie times, you know. Oh, it's Movie World Comics. Hey, how you doing? It's good to see you. You're just you missed most of the stream, but I might leave it up. I might leave this up for a little while, because people have been really interested in it. So I might leave it up for a little while. So if you want, you can watch it like later on if you want. You know, it's nice to see you. This is the 2nd issue, by the way. So those are some of the rarest humor magazines I have from the 50s and 60s. It's not all of them, but it's a lot of them. Now I got piles from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. I got other ones from the 50s and 60s. I got so much of this. And then I have tons and tons of weird comic books as well, which I love to talk about. So, I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's what I've just shown you today, is just one pile of comics. Just one that I have. All right. There's a lot. And I got boxes. I've started to get comic boxes finally to keep them in better shape. So yeah. So anyway, I got to put all this stuff back. But if you guys want to, I'm going to end the stream pretty soon, because I've been streaming for quite a while and I'm getting pretty hungry. But I want to say that I appreciate like all the people that have come. I didn't expect all the support that I got. I really didn't. And it's amazing. You know, I wasn't going to do a stream for a long time because I didn't know if people would be interested. And I didn't know if I was going to get, you know, trolls and stuff and whatnot. And so I decided, I don't know, today I went for a walk and then I came back and said, no, I'm going to stream today. I'm going to try it. And I'm glad I did, because I had a lot of fun showing you everything, talking to you about stuff. So is there anything anybody, Titus, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. It's always nice for me when people are interested in things I'm interested in, you know, because I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. You know, I'm into oddball stuff, oddball magazines and comics. I like humor because, I mean, there's a lot of things in the world that are not humorous, that are not fun. So it's a nice escapist thing to have humor comics and magazines and just laugh and have a good time, you know, and not worry about anything. And also having all these old humor magazines, like I said earlier, it's like somebody said it's like a time capsule. It's like going back into the past, learning about history through the magazines, because to get a lot of the jokes, you have to know about the events that happened back then, the personalities and things like that.